everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Tech. I'm joined as usual by Jason Griffin. Jason, how's it going, man?
It's going great, Seth. How are you doing?
Doing well. Coming to the final stretch here for the house, and I'm looking at I think I gotta sign up for cable now.
Man, I'll tell you what. I just a couple nights ago was going through and paying all my bills for the month, and like every month, I looked at my cable bill and I paid it, and I told myself I really need to do something about this, and yet I've done nothing. But it's a little bit out of control, you know.
Yeah, I'm on this like island, right? It's not really an island, but it just pretend it is an island. There's Verizon Fios on every street around this island, and Comcast only on the island. So I'm not too happy about that. So yeah, my only option is Comcast. This kind of ties into our conversation tonight. We had a gentleman on by the name of Grant Hall. He's with Tablo TV, and he came on and talked a little about cord cutting. So I kind of get my feeling on that, and kind of looks like it could be completely possible, right?
Yeah, Tablo is a cool product for anyone who's not familiar with it. We saw it out at CEDIA last year, and we're both pretty intrigued by it. It won't give away too much because obviously here in a little bit we'll jump into the interview after we hit on some news. But it's basically a little box you put in your house, and it grabs over-the-air HD TV that anyone can get for free, and gives you like a DVR functionality to that, and allows you to kind of stream it to multiple devices throughout your house, and even potentially when you're away from home, so you can record all your programs and watch them and not pay a giant cable bill. So really cool product. Really enjoyed our conversation with Grant, and we look forward to sharing that with you. But first we want to jump into a couple of news stories. But actually, before we hit the news stories, speaking of paying bills and everything, we wanted to kind of introduce something that we're going to be doing, trying something new here on the Home Tech podcast, and that's called Patreon. And this is basically you could kind of think of it like a Kickstarter campaign in a sense, but it's like an ongoing thing. And we've created a Patreon page, which you can find at Patreon, which is spelled patreon.com/HomeTech. So real simple URL, and you can go over there and check it out and kind of read some more of the details and get a better idea for what it's really about. But essentially, what we're asking is if listeners enjoy the show and feel like it's a valuable resource, you can basically become a patron and contribute, as little as $1 a month to the show to kind of support our efforts, help us pay for the hosting costs and some of the administrative stuff that we have, and also just to say thanks and show appreciation for the show and kind of help us continue to produce and expand the reach and kind of the coverage of our show.
Yeah, and I don't. We've been talking about this for a couple of months now. We traditionally podcasts, have advertisements on there, and I can't tell you how many Squarespace advertisements I've had. I can't tell you lynda.com advertisements I've heard, but those are great services. I just don't think they're very relevant to the shows that we have. And I think we'd have to, chase down manufacturers, and chat with them, to see if they could, support us that way. But I've had these conversations with you. I really don't want to do that because I think it kind of dilutes the show a little bit, right? Like it also takes away the message, I think, that we're trying to, I want to talk about these products. I don't want to have any like conflict of interest or anything. So
right.
I think just kind of putting this Patreon thing out there, it's $1. If you want to support us, just toss $1 into the hat there as you pass by. And if you don't have $1, run over to iTunes and please just give us a rating, good or bad, doesn't matter. That really does help out the show, helps people find the show too. And we'll include links to both iTunes and Patreon there on our website on the show notes, which are this week HomeTech.fm/shows/57. And the links to both Patreon and iTunes will be on there. We'll be, talking a little bit more about Patreon, I'm sure, on future episodes.
Yeah, and definitely. I just want to echo what you said. Basically, this is a way for us to kind of support the show and not have to do sponsorship or advertisements and really keep very unbiased and we feel like a valuable show. And we're going to continue to produce the show. We've been doing this a little bit over a year now. We really enjoy it. And no matter what, we're going to keep trying to produce the best show that we can. Whether you're a listener and you can contribute or not, it's all good either way. We're going to keep producing the best show that we possibly can, and that's not going to change. One of the things that you'll see if you do go to the Patreon page is similar to Kickstarter. We've made goals. And so if we reach certain funding amounts per month, we hit milestone goals, and that means that we'll do certain things. And I won't dive into those here. You can go over to the Patreon page and check those out. And there's also rewards for our patrons. So if you do become a supporter of the show, depending on how much you're able to contribute to the show per month, there's different reward levels. And we've tried to be creative with that and really give back and try to provide even additional value over and above what we're already doing with our Patreon page. So again, we'll move on. We want to jump into the news here, but we did want to introduce that, and we would encourage anybody listening who enjoys the show, if you think it's a valuable resource, please take a moment to go check it out.
Absolutely. Or, head over to Facebook and give us a like, because they're now getting into the Internet of Things, right?
They are, yes. There was big news. We're gonna touch on 3 news stories here, and one from Facebook, one from Apple, and one from Google. So big names in the news this week. But the first one here we wanted to talk about, and Seth, I'm going to kind of lean on you to tell me what this story means, as you're kind of the developer here in the group, and this was a little bit hard for me to parse, pardon the pun here, to parse the significance out of this story. So maybe you can tell us a little about your take on the story and what it means for Facebook to be kind of making an investment or a move towards the Internet of Things.
Yeah, so Facebook bought a company a couple of years back called Parse. And Parse was doing kind of an online database API backend for cross-development. Like a lot of times you need to store some data, whether it be pictures or restaurant reviews or whatever, for your app, and you could spin up your own database and build it out as a developer. You could do all these software things that you needed to do on a server, or you could basically sub that out to a company like Parse. And one of the cool things that they've done in the past was that they made that database available cross-platform to like Android, iOS, Windows Phone. Heck, I think they even support Blackberry. Who does that anymore, right? But,
good question.
So one of the things that they've brought into play is actually supporting embedded Internet of Things products, and basically, from what I can tell, it looks like all they've done is written some API endpoints for it. It doesn't look like there's much, like the product could have done this before. They've just kind of done the heavy lifting for you and written the libraries as a developer. You just put this in your product and then you have access to Parse, which is great. It makes that part of developing an Internet of Things device that much easier.
Yeah.
And so, we talked about a little bit about this when we were talking about the Internet of Things a couple of weeks ago, like some of the commercial things like Xively and AT&T MTN.
Right.
So, but this is Facebook, so I guess it got a lot of headlines when they announced that they were going to get into this market, right?
Yeah, and I think if I'm understanding it correctly, it's a benefit if you're a developer or you're coming up with an app or a product. Something like this benefits you because you're basically getting this infrastructure that's all set up and ready for you. It makes it easier for you to deploy your solution. If you're an end user, I guess the argument is that, the benefit is these products and solutions come to market quicker and at a lower cost than they might otherwise. Clearly, that benefit as a consumer comes at a cost, which is, or at least a perceived cost, I'm sure, from a lot of people, which is giving Facebook access to more of your data. I'm not one of these guys who worries too much about that, but I totally get those concerns, and I understand where people are coming from, and certainly that's something to be aware of. kind of what is Facebook's interest in this, and in the long run, what is their plan with all of this data. But I think, from a high level, it's a natural move for Facebook, just like all the other big boys like Google and Apple and everybody else is looking at the Internet of Things and looking at things like the connected home and trying to figure out where they fit into that puzzle. And this is no different. This is Facebook's effort to kind of position themselves to really take advantage of what is clearly a burgeoning market, and not surprising news, but appreciate your insight on it.
And they already had the infrastructure there. Like this wasn't a stretch for them to do.
Right.
The product exists. And if you are developing a device, an Internet of Things device, say a smart plug or something, you could embed this software into your device. It would reach out to a known database, parse, and then all you need to do is write the apps that reach out to the same database, and you're good to go. You have an entire platform written for you. So very cool. Very, very cool that they're doing this. But I don't think it's very much anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of companies and being after data, Google is obviously the big boy when you talk about that. And they were in the news this week as well. Now, this was another story that got a ton of coverage and took a little bit of digging for me to really understand kind of why this was significant. And basically, it was a story about a patent application from Google. A lot of coverage of it all over the internet. I think the best piece that you and I both read on it, and we kind of agreed on this, was Mike Wolf's take over at the Next Market website, where he kind of breaks it down. I sat down this past weekend to try to read this patent application, and I've never actually sat down and really said, okay, I'm going to read a whole patent application because I really want to understand like what this is all about. I tried to read this one, and I'm telling you, I don't know if I'll ever make that attempt again. It is very, very difficult reading, kind of tough to sort of make your way through it. But, essentially Google's filing this patent, and it all kind of ties into their idea for the conscious home, the future of the smart home. We talk about this difference often. You have, the difference between just a home that you're able to control versus a conscious home that's kind of actually making decisions for you based on user behaviors and patterns. And this patent application appears to be Google's step in that direction towards what they envision as the future of the conscious home.
I guess. I mean, to me, it seems like I'm looking over the illustrations both on Mike's site and on CE Pro, and it's just like the most confusing little illustrations that I've ever seen, and it's just like it basically takes a circle and draws it around the entire connected home that already exists. So I don't really know or understand how they're filing a patent on it. And I guess it's only significant for us because it means that they are, I mean, not that we didn't know they are, but they are looking at the home as an automation, as a place they want to be, right?
Yeah, which clearly isn't news to anybody who listens to this show.
Or anybody that knows that they purchased Nest for $3.2 billion. Like,
yeah, exactly. I kind of had that same reaction when I was reading it. Like, there was a lot of talk about a smart doorbell. That's interesting in the sense that it looks like Google may come out with the smart doorbell soon, something that rivals Ring, which we've talked about before. There's a couple of other solutions out on the market. But, what's been pointed out about this smart doorbell, to me, I just struggle to see how it's different from like what's already happening, and it talks about a smart doorbell sort of being a trigger point for decisions that a smart home could make. But like that's already happening. You could do that with Chewy or Ring or whatever it is. If this, then that, if you see me at the door, do this, do that. So I don't really see how this is different. But again, like you said, significant just in the sense that it shows Google's clearly interested in continuing down this road. But that's not really news to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, here's my Ring doorbell. It's working. Good.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, and it's texted my phone, so that's even better. So yeah, that's it's one of those. Google has that I/O event, right? That's their developer event coming up in May. So only a couple months away, and it's a 2-day event towards the end of May. I think the 26th is when it starts. But that's where we're going to find out what all this means, right? Mm-hmm. That's when we'll find out if there's anything more to what this patent means. Right now, this is just kind of an abstract, brain dump, it seems.
Yeah.
This is all the ideas that they have, and they just want to patent them to make sure that they're covered whenever they release whatever product they release.
Right.
Hopefully
which is something
year.
that happens with patents a lot. It's kind of Mike Wolf used the term, it could be a land grab kind of thing, where they're just sort of staking their claim and saying, we thought of that first. So who knows? Interesting. Anytime Google is in the news for the smart home, it's going to get coverage, and certainly something that we wanted to at least touch on tonight. The third kind of segment here in the news portion that we wanted to touch on again comes from Apple, and wanted to kind of save this one for last because it dovetails into our conversation with Grant Hall from Tablo, because it really is it's a conversation about cord cutting. Apple's been in the news this week. It looks like the Wall Street Journal was reporting on rumors that they're going to be coming out with like a bundled TV package. So about 25 channels was the number they were throwing around. They're working on deals with some of the major networks, and just really aiming to disrupt the traditional cable model. I know that we talked last year about Apple being in talks with Comcast, but apparently those talks have broken down. They were talking about some sort of deal that they were going to work on. They felt like Comcast was sort of stringing them along while they worked on their X1 media product, which we can include a link to in the show notes. But, this year, like we've said it numerous times, 2015 to me really feels like the year of the cord cutter. And this story combined also with rumors of a new Apple TV hardware product coming to market soon, really, I think, show that Apple's seriously, eyeing the media room and wanting to make some moves there.
Yeah, there were a lot of eyebrows raised when they announced that HBO Now exclusivity deal, and it runs out in 2 or 3 months, which is right in time for their development conference. Mm-hmm. Which people were saying, oh, well, it looks like HBO may be getting kind of a preview of what developers will see with the new Apple TV when the developer conference comes around. And that may be the case. I think the biggest tell, though, is on Apple's own website. Now the Apple TV, if you go to purchase it, it says starting at $69. Which is what they do when they have more options to sell you. So yeah, I think that right there, the current Apple TV is so long in the tooth right now. I mean, it's 3-year-old hardware. I think it's been updated a couple of times, but not much, and it's definitely showing its age now. I mean, Roku looks like a lot more compelling type of device. The little Chrome sticks, those look really cool too. So I think it's time. It's definitely time to see something.
The market has definitely changed, and there's a lot more competition there for Apple now. And I think certainly, like they've always, I'm sure, planned on releasing a new Apple TV, but this is, if anything, helping push them along, and a little bit more competition in the market, I think, is good for consumers. The new Apple TV that they're talking about looks like a pretty substantial upgrade. They have the new A8 chip that they're going to use that is faster processing. I do have to think that this is going to be, HomeKit is going to come into play. We've been talking about that ever since they announced HomeKit last year. Like, okay, where's the new Apple TV? Is this going to play in to the whole HomeKit ecosystem? I think we've kind of seen things happening where even the older ones, via a software update can kind of integrate into that. But certainly the new Apple TV, I'm sure HomeKit functionality is being considered from the ground up on this product. And I think it's just really interesting. I mean, I'm a big fan of all things Apple. I use Apple computers. I'm an iPhone user. I'm a huge fan of the current Apple TV that I have. And so this to me is an exciting proposition. And I think also just the fact that they're considering moving into bundling TV services as well. I'm really, really excited and intrigued to see kind of where all of this goes.
Yeah. One thing is for sure, starting in May, this is going to be a very interesting year, especially around this type of cord cutting technology, and heck, I mean, home automation in general. I think these two products are you're going to see them come together in a way that hasn't been possible before. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting year. It looks like there's a lot in play right now.
Absolutely. Well, with that, speaking of cord cutting, let's go ahead and jump into our interview. Once again, we have Grant Hall on. He's from a company that's actually called Nuvio, but they're better known for their product Tablo, which is a very exciting product and I think really interesting, something we look forward to sharing with our audience here. So without further ado, we will present to you our conversation with Grant Hall. Grant, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Awesome. Well, we do appreciate you taking the time to join us here. It's a conversation that Seth and I have been very excited to have. We're going to talk about the Tablo, and we're going to talk about cord cutting and all the kind of exciting stuff you guys have going on, obviously. But before we jump into the company and the product, Grant, maybe you can give our listeners a little bit of a personal introduction and maybe your background prior to kind of doing what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah, the company's located up in Ottawa, Canada, so we're Canadians, and you actually just interrupted. We were watching the Senators game, but they're losing, so no problem coming on the call. But Ottawa is a big telecommunications town, so it's always been, very strong in voice and data and telecommunications and video. So my background is, working in those industries, for companies like Alcatel and Nortel, doing things like developing, products, being a product manager, running marketing. And I guess the last role I had before I really went on my own was working at Nortel, and I was running their marketing group for their video solutions. And that had the opportunity to work with a lot of the Canadian telephone companies that were, really installing IPTV, and Canada was really a leader in that field, in bringing, video over DSL, over copper into homes. And so I worked with companies like TELUS and Bell Atlantic, when they were just rolling that out. So got, an early taste and really loved video. Went on to Nortel and worked in video solutions. And, we came up with a couple ideas that we just couldn't get off the ground, when the company was running. And then when the company died, we decided this is a great opportunity. Let's just go out there and do it.
Very cool. So I am down here in Los Angeles, as you may know, and not a area that most people associate with being hockey country, but the Kings have been playing pretty well last couple seasons. So
yeah, are you kidding me? Come on.
We're into it. It's a lot of fun. Great. So definitely interesting background. And now you guys are Nuvio, and we're going to talk about the Tablo product, but Nuvio is the company, obviously, that makes that product. And maybe you can tell us about Nuvio and sort of the genesis of the company.
Yeah, sure. So we, Nuvio is the company name, and we tend to brand more around the product now. So we, call ourselves more Tablo or Tablo TV, but Nuvio is the actual company name. We started about, I guess about 4 years ago, after Nortel imploded, we got this idea. And the first idea we had was really, because I'm kind of a home media, geek as well. So I was into home theater and, XBMC and, Plex and Boxy at the day, and really had a passion for that and for mobility. And one of the ideas we had is, wouldn't it be great if you could take all that media you had in your home, stored on your NAS or your computer or your media center or media server, and, get access to that on your iPad or your mobile device wherever you were. So the first product we built, we called the Jetstream HD, and it actually was a little box that went in your home network, connected into your router, and it found all the media in your home network, wherever you had it situated. So it would find your videos, your movie rips, your television rips, your home videos. It would find your photos, all your music. And then it would actually catalog that and serve it up in real time to an application that ran on your iPad, so that from wherever you were, you could access every single video you had. and using, very much the same kind of iconic, user interface that we developed for the Tablo. So we developed that product. We launched it at Demo 2011 out in California. Big fun. And then we built some of the product and started shipping it to customers. But this first iteration of the company was entirely bootstrapped. So that means we're really funding it with our own cash, with some government grants and help and friends and family. And, by the time we got the product built and on the market, we just completely out of gas. So we learned a hard lesson that to build a consumer brand and to really be successful, it's not just the product. It's people have to know about it. It's sales and marketing, and you need some, resources behind you. So at that time we added, because our customers had said, well, we love getting all our, photos, songs, movies and everything on our iPads wherever we are. But we also want to watch, local news and sports, because when we're traveling, we want to be connected and we want to watch that Sens game. So we added a USB tuner that tuned in live TV, and that was really our first exposure to, this free HD TV. And we were that was a real epiphany for us. We were, just stunned by the quality, and it was better than cable or satellite, and that you could get, almost all the major networks, the four majors in the U.S. and our major networks in Canada, and it was all free. So we thought, people started to ask us, can you record it now? And we thought, well, this is a huge opportunity. All these media adapters, tablets, mobility is taking off. What if we built a device, like the Jetstream, but just devoted to video? So we record and, playback TV and then stream it to any device you owned anywhere you were. So we built a prototype using the Jetstream HD hardware, took that around, shopped it around the investment community, and, managed to get an investor interested, got the funding. And, in 2013, we built the product and launched it last year. And it's really been, it's just exploded from there.
Nice. I don't think many people know that the HD signal that you get from your antenna, like a pair of rabbit ears, is a lot better in quality than what you get from the cable company. And I think the cable companies end up having to compress quite a bit. And from what I understand, you would probably be able to touch on this a little bit more. The signal that's sent out from the over the air isn't compressed as much. Is that right?
Yeah, that's been our experience, that, they've got much more bandwidth available over the air, and it's dedicated. So they tend to compress it much less, and consequently, you just get a better picture. And that's pretty much universal. Now, it is possible for stations to squeeze a lot of sub-channels and, additional channels in there and then compress the main channel a bit. But, typically we don't see that, in the OTA, and the quality is just, stunning. I mean, people just don't believe it until they see it.
Yeah, I remember the first year I saw OTA was actually, I think, the 2008 Olympics. And I had my in-laws had just purchased a brand new HD TV, Pioneer, if I remember correctly. And we hooked it up right up to the antenna that they had and pointed it into Tampa and picked up some of the broadcast signals from there. We're just blown away by how crystal clear, the swimming events and some of the field events were. It was just amazing.
Yeah. And free.
Yeah, absolutely, and free. You don't have to pay for a subscription. So, I guess let's bring that back around to Tablo a little bit. I noticed you had a couple of different types of products, like a two-tuner Metro, and a four-tuner. Can you just kind of touch a little bit on what those the differences is between those products?
Yeah, we start out, and we're not quite shipping the Metro yet. So the products we have in the market today are the 2 and the 4-tuner, and they're really the same product. The only difference is really the additional tuners, and what that allows you to do is just record more shows at the same time. So if if you're really hardcore and there's 3 shows on or 4 shows on at the same time slot, let's say at 10 o'clock, you can record all 4 of those with the 4-tuner model, where obviously with the 2-tuner you could only record 2. So that's the main difference. The other capabilities, the way the app works, the user experience is identical. Now, the Metro is a bit different. It's kind of based on the two-tuner, but what we did was took some cool technology and built the actual HD antennas right into the box. So it has fractal HD antennas, 2 of them, and then it actually has a smart, switching matrix. So it actually picks the best antenna for the best signal, for that particular channel and recording. And we call it the Metro because they're built into the product, so they won't go 100 miles, but they'll do a great job in an urban location if you're in a major city and you're 15 to 25 miles from the broadcasting towers. So it was just an idea to increase convenience, make it a little easier for the customer to install it. There was nothing else they needed to buy, and it was some pretty cool technology.
Very cool. So let's touch on that because you mentioned, with the Metro that there's nothing else that the end user has to buy. If you purchase just, I guess, the standard 2-tuner or 4-tuner model, I guess at that point you are purchasing your own external antenna. And yes. I believe I saw that also, do all of these units operate on an external hard drive as well?
That's right. Yeah. So either way, and we debate a lot about this, building a hard drive in or not. And, I guess we found, 2 things. One, hard drives are actually much cheaper. You can buy one cheaper than I could buy one and build it in. So it's actually more cost effective to not include it. And it also, gives people the flexibility to choose, what size is right for them. So in the product today, we support up to a 2 terabyte drive. And, on the typical settings, we use about 2 gig per hour of storage, just slightly more. So, a 2 terabyte drive will give you, 1,000 hours of HD programming, which is, something like 2 weeks worth of solid watching. So if you don't need that much, you want to save some money, you can get like a half a terabyte drive or a 1 terabyte drive and still have plenty of storage.
Sure.
So it gives you some flexibility, and the drives are just always dropping in price. So we found most customers like that option, and so you need to plug in the USB drive. For the 2 and the 4 tuner, you do need an external antenna, and that's also goes with where you are, because, in relation to the broadcast towers, if you're in a rural setting or, suburban, you may need an outdoor antenna, if you're, suburban or, in the city core, very small indoor antenna is going to work just great.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can certainly see that there would be pros and cons, when you guys are sitting down at the drawing board and kind of going back and forth, deciding, do we include a hard drive inside of this, or do we require the end user to provide their own? And definitely pros and cons there, but that makes perfect sense. I mean, as an end user, if you want the option to go out and buy a 2 terabyte hard drive, then you kind of have that option. Or like you said, if you want to save a few bucks, you could buy a smaller hard drive. Speaking of pricing, can you give us just a quick rundown of how the pricing compares across those 3 models?
Sure. The 2-tuner model, it lists for about $219. Typically streets, on Amazon or other retail partners like Walmart or Target, for less than that. So the street price is usually around, under $200. The Metro is designed to be right in the middle at this price of $249, and then the 4-tuner model is $299. And they all street for a little less, depending on what the retailer is doing at that particular time in terms of discounting.
Cool. And I noticed when you're talking about TV channels, and I just start thinking about guide information. Obviously, I know from past experience that the guide data is a very expensive thing to purchase. Is that something else that like another, I guess, cost that it'd take to basically? Yeah. Okay. So there's a recurring type monthly or yearly?
It's entirely optional, but we think we provide a lot of value with it. So if you don't buy the subscription, and the subscription pricing, you can either buy it monthly, it's about $4.99 US. You can buy it annual for $49.99, or you can buy a lifetime for $149.99. Now, if you don't buy the subscription, you still get 24 hours of guide data at any one time, but it's basically the textual description of that particular show, and you can program it to manually record. You select that guide listing. You say, I want to record this channel this time, and maybe it's recurring, once a week or whatever. And you play back the recordings, and you get, all the capability you would expect from a PVR. What you don't get is, and with the subscription, because that buys you, the better guide data in terms of it's 14 days long. We do the automatic programming, so you can just say record, everything that's new on this particular series, or all episodes or all episodes in this series. And we'll do that automatically. We'll do things like if we notice it's a live event, we'll automatically extend the recording by 50%, just in case the Academy Awards go over. Not that ever happens, or the hockey gets late. So we give you a beautiful, Netflix style icons and lots of metadata and plot description and, ways to sort by genre, by channel. So you can say, I'm interested in comedies. Well, what comedies are coming up this week, or what's premiering in the next 2 weeks? So you get, a lot of additional functionality that just makes the experience better. And you get the ability to access your Tablo when you're on the road over the internet. So those two features, come with the subscription. But without the subscription, if you really want to save the money, it's a completely functional product, and we're quite proud of that.
So the remote viewing feature, that's part of the subscription as well.
Yeah, and that's just one of the capabilities that small additional cost does get you.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Just wanted to kind of touch a little bit on the physical box itself. I noticed there's no HDMI connection. Can you want to touch on that a little bit? Yeah, so our philosophy is a little different. So, the customer that we were targeting, and it was really somebody who's using the OTT, the streaming, Netflix or Hulu, or, so they're already consuming a fair bit of content over the top, as they say, over the internet. So that means they've already got, an iPad, they've got a smartphone, they've got a Roku box, or maybe an Android TV, or they've got a Chromecast dongle or an Apple TV box. So our philosophy was, let's not try and replace those boxes. Let's actually work with the box you've already got and you're already using, and let's just bring a great app, put a great app on that box or that device that gives you access to all this, broadcast, live TV. So, and the consequence of that is that one Tablo can do your whole home. So depending on how, good your Wi-Fi is, we can stream to, 4 or more devices at the same time. So, the Roku box on one TV, or, your iPad, or, a Chromecast on another TV can all be watching a different recording or a live TV at the same time using that one Tablo box. So it gives you a whole home solution, and it's not just confined to that one TV as it would be if we had a single HDMI port.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting approach, and it's certainly one that caught my eye when I was researching the product. But that definitely makes sense. It does, for me, kind of beg the question of, like, if I'm a consumer and I purchase this device and I bring it home and install it, what's my day-to-day user experience like? If I want to sit down at 6 p.m. and kind of putz around and change the channel a couple times, and can you just talk about how that works? Like, I have an Apple TV at home, so in that context, and then maybe you can touch, because I think, if I'm understanding correctly, with Roku, that it might work a little bit differently. Can you talk about just kind of the day-to-day user experience?
Yeah, so you pointed out there are, two classifications of devices. Like, there's the, Chromecast dongle is popular because it's inexpensive, but it really doesn't have any remote or any UI of its own. So it requires, a tablet or a smartphone to provide that interface, and then you just, fling the video to the Chromecast when you want to watch it on the big screen. For Apple TV, it's kind of a similar model today because, unless you're Netflix or, CNN, you're just not getting an app on that Apple TV box. But they do support AirPlay, which is great. So we support apps on your iPad or your iPhone that allow you to use AirPlay to just send the video to the big screen and then use your tablet or smartphone to control the experience. So in that way, we built a beautiful touch interface that really is a joy to use. So, compared to a lot of PVRs, which are, pretty clunky, the touch interface is fantastic. But we also recognize, particularly for Roku, and we're just introducing apps actually the next day or two for Android TV and Kindle Fire TV, that a lot of people, they like using the remote. They just want to, sit back and enjoy the content. They don't want to search around for their phone or their iPad. And for them, we provide a great user interface that looks very similar to the touch interface, but it's optimized for a D-pad and to run on the big screen, the 10-foot user interface, in a lean-back environment. Mm-hmm. And one of the nice things about that is, let's say it's a Roku and Kindle Fire TV. You want to watch live TV. Well, I don't have to pull out my TV remote and switch to a different HDMI port and then pull out my Comcast remote and start fooling around with that. I actually just close the Netflix app, open the Tablo app. I've got the same remote. And I've got, the TV experience. I can watch live TV. I can, watch recordings. I can schedule things I want to record. So we think it's the best of both worlds. It's the ultimate convenience. I'm using the same remote. I'm using the same device and the same HDMI port, and it just works beautifully.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of drive that point home, because that's what I was gathering when I was really diving in and looking at the product. So if you're a Roku owner, then you're actually at that point, you have the capability where the Roku and like the Roku remote, the IR remote for that box, or whatever IR remote you're using to control your Roku, actually becomes your interaction with the Tablo, and you can navigate through the channels and find what you want to watch, etc. Yeah. Whereas if you're using like an Apple TV or a Chromecast, you're doing all of that browsing and channel surfing on your iPad, for instance, and then basically mirroring that up to the TV.
And that could be quite convenient. I mean, there's two different models, and some people like one and some people like the other. It's, so we're lucky we can do both, and we can do both, really well.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk just a little bit more about the actual installation of the product. If I purchase the Tablo and it gets shipped to my door and I unbox it, what's included in the box, and what's kind of involved in the physical installation in my media room?
Yeah, so I mean, we've built dual band Wi-Fi into the Tablo product because we found that typically, and for a lot of people in the deployment scenario, you're going to get your best reception when you got the antenna, on the second floor of the house, maybe in a bedroom window. That's where mine is, or in a window that's going to face the broadcast towers. So a lot of people use like those little Mohu antennas, or there's a variety of very cost-effective indoor antennas you can just stick in the window. But, typically for me anyways, my router's in the office downstairs, or in a lot of people it's in the basement, and that's just not the right place to get a good HD signal. So the box itself supports Wi-Fi, so you can connect it into your local network and then put the box, the antenna, wherever you want. And since everything's controlled through the app, either on your iPad or your PC Mac or on the the Roku or the Android TV box, you never really need to touch it. There's really no operating controls on it whatsoever. So in that scenario, the deployment's pretty easy. You buy the box, you bought a hard drive, you just plug that in the USB port. You put the little antenna in the window and you hook up the coax connector just like you would to your TV onto the back of the Tablo. And then you fire up the, one of the apps. And then the apps has a little wizard that walks you through the process. And in that case, the first thing would be to connect to your Tablo and then connect it into your home network. So there's a little, Wi-Fi setup wizard that does that, much like you do with the Chromecast today. And then from then on, the next step is you do you put in your postal code or your zip code when you're in the U.S., and that's how it knows which guide information to get, knows which OTA channels you could receive. And then you do push a button that does a scan, and it finds all the channels that your antenna is receiving. Then you can select the ones you want and, deselect the ones you don't want. And once you say done, it's essentially set up. It's now going to pull down the guide data, and, from then on, you're essentially in business.
Yeah, that's interesting. the location of putting the box somewhere else in the house, not next to the TV, kind of threw me off. Like,
yeah,
but it makes sense for this.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's all about, getting that best reception, because it is an over-the-air signal. So, height does matter. Higher is better in terms of, less obstructions in the way and a better signal. And facing the tower if you can. I mean, the HD signals and ATSC is designed to propagate through buildings quite well, but it still does attenuate the signal a bit. So if you can get the antenna in a window facing the broadcast tower, you're just going to have a crystal clear picture, and that's the best placement. And as I said, that's often not where your Ethernet is.
Cool. Yeah, Yeah, it kind of threw me off there, but it's just a different setup, and I'm just kind of thinking about we Jason and I normally are putting equipment in racks. As you probably know, I believe I saw you guys at CEDIA. You were back on the back rookie row, I think is what they were calling it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. We are traditionally installing everything in a centralized location, but this kind of product is just completely different. I could put it off somewhere else, and it could just sit there and live, and like you said, get the best signal, and just kind of live on the network, and I can access it from there, which is just a really interesting thing you can do, I guess. It's basically like a little server that serves TV to all the devices you have in your home. I mean, smartphones, PC, Macs, you name it, and it connects in through the internet when you're traveling or when you're outside. Right. So I guess. Let's talk about you mentioned Roku a couple times in the Google Chrome portion. Is what other third-party integrations do you have? Anything with control systems or APIs?
No, we have. That was a popular request, particularly the CEDIA show, but it's not something we've done yet. Not that we cannot, but one thing we've done is we do have an API in the box. And it's a REST API, and we just basically redone it and redone the Roku app really to make it, I think it's going to be one of the best Roku apps that's out there. And our intention is to publish that app and make it available to third parties. Now, we already do have a couple of, hardcore fans who are just great, who actually wrote a Plex channel that interfaces in using, an earlier version of that API, but they're adopting it to the latest API as well, that allows them to, Plex now to access the Tablo and to do live TV and to pull your recordings up. And that's kind of the first external integration we've done. We've developed clients or apps on our own for, Kindle Fire TV and the Stick, Android, Google Nexus, the Android TV, Roku, and then using Chromecast, the Chromecast dongle, from Android, and using AirPlay, for an iPad or iPhone. And then we have apps for iPhones, iPads, Android tablets, Android phones, and, PC Mac through a web browser.
Very cool. So I think we've touched pretty well on kind of the technical and user experience side of the product. I'd like to spend our last few minutes here just talking about kind of your marketing position. Specifically, I wanted to know kind of how you feel like Tablo is, what differentiates you guys from similar hardware offerings in the market. TiVo's Romeo line of products jumps to mind, for instance.
Yeah, well, it's a more, I would call it a more conventional PVR in that it has an HDMI port. It connects to one TV. They do have an optional box you can buy that'll do some streaming to mobile devices. But it's, there's more things you have to assemble. I think we have better support. I don't believe they have Roku apps yet, or Android TV apps, or Kindle Fire TV apps. So I think we've got a broader product portfolio, and we have good support for Android and iPad. So I think that's kind of fundamentally the differentiation. We kind of built the box as a next gen product at the outset and built it to stream all these devices, where Channel Master doesn't do that. It's a product that you connect to your TV and it works. but it doesn't support all the other devices in your home. And the TiVo is similar. It connects to your TV and it works, but the experience across your other devices isn't quite as good as I think what we bring to market.
Yeah, and I think, I'll preface this question saying I think I know probably exactly where you'll go with it. But for anybody listening who might be wondering, what differentiates the Tablo from like a lot of these purely streaming solutions that we're seeing more and more of? Hulu is obviously one that's been around for a while that a lot of people are familiar with, or you've got, Sling TV. Like what differentiates the Tablo really from just going with like a series of pure kind of streaming app solutions?
I think there's nothing else that gives you, that live broadcast experience. Now, Sling doesn't have the four majors. They don't have really live broadcasts. They have, ESPN, which is great. So, for us, a lot of people said, I love your product, but I still need my sports. Now you can get that with Sling TV, so it's a great complement to what we do. Hulu, kind of gives you content that's a little older. You have to wait a week or so to watch it. It's not as comprehensive. You don't get the live experience with your local news and sports. So, what we think we're really an excellent complement because you get at a very affordable price, either free or modest subscription. You get access to all the major broadcast traffic, both live and a beautiful PVR experience to record it and play it back. And when you add that to what you get from Netflix or Sling TV or Hulu, you just got a solution that there's just no excuse for paying Comcast or Time Warner $100 a month. And that's, so we actually, these other solutions are completely complementary and beneficial, to what we do with our product.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds a bit more of a compliment than a competitor type situation. Especially as we move into 2015, it really feels like this is going to be the year that it's actually possible for most people. I want to say not the like early adopters, not the people who are just on the bleeding edge of things, but for most normal people to start cutting the cord and start getting rid of Comcast and Time Warner and using a product like yours. And I'm thinking of like the new apps that are coming out with HBO Now.
If I was a cable exec, I'd be scared to death because I think the pendulum is swinging and we're at that tipping point. And, it's not a question of if it's going to happen. It's really how long is it going to take to happen? And, I think you're right. It's really education. People just don't get the fact that you can get free TV over the air anymore. That we seem to have lost that. Our parents knew it, but we've forgotten it.
Yeah, and it's a lot of channels too. Like here, I think there's about 25 different channels that you can get, all of the networks. But a number of other ones that you wouldn't quite expect to be broadcasting or broadcasting. So there's quite a few, which is nice. So I guess we're kind of running short on our time here, and I want to thank you for your time, and just thank you. We appreciate you for coming on. What's next for Nuvio?
Well, it's really, we've still got a lot of work we can do to make the experience better. So we've got a lot of features that we still want to get in the product to, that our customers have suggested that, that we just haven't had the time to do. So, we've been pretty aggressive, and every couple of months we roll out new features. And the product we started with a year ago is not the product we have today. It's just so much better. So we're going to continue that, and we're going to continue to support more devices, hopefully smart TVs, and then just make it easier to use.
Very good. Well, Grant, I will echo what Seth said and really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. I don't think we really touched on this. If somebody's listening and they're really, sold on the product from what they've heard and they want to go out and buy one, where can people buy the Tablo?
The best thing to do is to go to our website, because we've got some tools on there where you can put your zip code in. We'll tell you what channels you get. But it's www.tablotv.com. So that's TABLOTV, one word.com. And it'll have links to all our retail partners, but it's available at, Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, all online right now. But we've got quite a few retail partners that are helping us with the product.
Excellent. Well, Grant, thank you again for coming on our show, and I appreciate taking time away from the hockey game whatever you do, don't go back and start watching the hockey game. I just hit refresh on the scores. It's not looking good, man. So
damn,
the Lightning's not doing any better. So just want to thank you again for coming on the show. And
my pleasure.
Thanks very much, Grant. And thanks for listening, everyone. I just wanted to throw this one more time at the end here at the show. If you like the show or if you like what we're doing here on the HomeTech, head on over to patreon.com/HomeTech and throw a dollar or whatever you want to in the hat there, or iTunes. Anything you can do for us is very much appreciated.
Yep, I think like Seth said, anything you can do, either hop over to Patreon or go leave us a review on iTunes. We would really appreciate either one of those things. Once again, thank you so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate it, and we will talk to you next week.